All right. Can you hear me still okay, Tom?
Good.
What?
Good. You can't hear me?
Are you still there?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm here.
I'm just kidding. All right.
Asshole.
I gotta fuck with you a little bit.
Sure.
Okay. So here we go. We're back, buddy.
We are. I went with the John Lennon hat this time.
Oh, really? Yeah.
In,
Well,
in
that's
honor of our guest who likes cool hats. This is one of my favorites. This was actually my grandfather's. He got it in Greece. It says made in Greece. It's a Greek fisherman's cap. And this is kind of like John Lennon wore things like this. So I figured.
okay. So why was your grandfather? Wait, he was in Greece? Back that up.
Yeah,
Okay.
my mom, of course, she's been a past guest. My
Yeah.
mom and her parents and my stepdad, they all went to Greece like back in the 80s, which is a story in itself because while they were there, what they did not know is that I had made a key to my mom's car and I was staying at my dad's house. So my dad would drop me off in the morning so I could ride my bike to school. And instead, as soon as he pulled out of the driveway, the Mazda RX-7 backing it out of the garage.
Oh my God.
I'm like 14 or 15 driving this thing to school. And stupid me, I didn't even know. I'm like, I'll park right out in the front of the school, like right out in front. So I parked out in front, right there in the circle drive and just turned it off and walked in. Oh my God.
Wait, what the fuck does this have to do with the hat? I'm so confused.
Because they were in Greece buying this hat, and I was driving my mom's car.
I've never seen you wear that hat. That's a first.
Well, yeah, and you never heard the story about me driving my mom's car at 14 throughout the streets of Detroit.
And now that I have heard that story, I'm glad.
It's life-changing, isn't it? Yeah.
Right.
It'll end up on the
riveting.
floor.
Absolutely riveting.
Tom and T.
Two middle-aged idiots.
How are you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I had problems with my real estate situation, my realtor. So I have a new realtor and I've done a lot to my house. Might look a little different in the background. We moved some things around, brightened it up in here more.
Yeah. Are you going through Redfin now? Or
Yeah, I'm going through Redfin, man. I'm saving almost 20 grand on closing costs. So that's cool.
That's awesome. So your contract with your other realtor ended the end of April, right? The end of the month?
Of April.
Okay.
Well, this is probably, we record these in advance. So in case one of us, goes on a 3-week bender, we still have things to put out.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know when this is coming out, but right now it's we're in early May. You're out from underneath that contract. You're now with Redfin.
With Redfin.
How does that work? Is it a significantly different cost?
Well, yeah, because most realtors charge like 6%, and they get like 3.2, and then the buyer's agent gets 2.8. Well, with Redfin, they only take 1.5, and then they give 2.5 to the. So I only pay 4%, which is about a $15,000 to $20,000 difference. And then if you sign up with Redfin to buy your house, they only do that at 1%. So the combination, you just save a lot of money. So
right. So by the way, I just listened to this podcast, the New York Times, The Daily, and they had the whole story about breaking down the mysteries of this whole law change that's happened, where now you have to disclose who is getting what percent, because I guess originally that 6% was divided up between the buyer and seller's agent, and the buyer typically paid for both sides of it.
Right.
And now it's supposed to be more transparent so that, you have the choice. But I guess there's like all this clandestine activity of where they'll instead of telling somebody, because I guess you can't do that for whatever reason,
disclosure,
they would do these like little things like put out 3 cookies or play a movie in the background of the house with the number 3 in the title, like 3 Amigos or something, to let them know with a kind of a subtle wink that they were going to get their 3%.
Right.
Anyway, It's absolutely fascinating. And there's also an Instagrammer, he's out of Boulder, I believe, that decided to sell his house on his own. I'll have to find out the name. I wish I had that at the ready. I didn't know we were going to be talking about this, but people that are listening probably know who we're talking about. But this guy has been trying to do it and just getting so much pushback from just the National Association of Realtors, I think it is, NAR, not
Everyone,
NRA.
everyone wants their little slice of the pie, as it were.
They
So,
absolutely. Well, speaking of slice, I want to get a slice of your guest coming up. So
okay, so I met this gentleman when we were in Los Angeles in acting school together, and he and I had a lot in common because we had both, kind of retired from radio to go, to go out to Los Angeles to pursue our dreams. But he had already done a bunch of stuff, and I recognized him. He's been in movies with, Stallone. He's been, he's done a lot of stuff when he was in Miami, and he's continued to do a lot of work.
not Sylvester, but
No,
Jimmy.
not Sylvester
No.
Stallone.
Right.
No. But no, and then he's written screenplays. He's had some success with some of those. He's done all kinds of radio work. He used to host, big time radio shows, and he's a musician. He's a voice actor, and that's how I got my voice over agent, was through him out in Los Angeles. So, and he's one of my best friends and favorite people in the world. And this is David Caprita.
David Caprita. Wow. Hey, David, how are you?
Boy, what an introduction. I hope I live up to it. I don't know if I can surpass the Greek hat story, but
it's a hard one to surpass.
I fucking hope you can. Jesus.
I love your flag, man. Canada. The
oh yeah.
Leaf.
Yeah, we've had that for years.
Nice.
And then when we moved to Atlanta from LA, which a lot of people did at the same time, we lost that, and then there's another flag you can't see. Anyway, it was like, well, that was really cool. Never see that again. And then Ellen, who finds everything. I mean, I'm like, where's my fucking phone? And she will find it like within 5 seconds.
Who's Ellen?
So anyway, my wife Ellen.
No, it's his imaginary friend.
Right.
So anyway, long story about nothing, but we just hung that up a few weeks ago.
Oh,
after
cool.
Like 7 or 8 years of it being missing.
So I'm guessing
you're appropriate.
You're a fan of both Canada and the Bud, right?
Canada and cannabis.
Nice.
So I've cooled it with the gummy bears for like I can't believe I've gone that long. And to tell you the truth, I don't really miss it, but I've gone a couple of months without the leaf.
So anyway, so David and I studied with Sanford Meisner in the Meisner technique out in Los Angeles.
Right.
And we immediately connected because of our radio passes. They said, first day was like, pick a partner that you're going to do these first, exercises with. And, ever since then, I mean, we've known each other and we've been very close. And I've followed his career closely. And it's so funny because I'll turn people onto his acting reel. And I know the lines. Me and David would be like, what's that from? I'm like, dude, that was your line in, The Specialist or whatever. And he'd be like, dude, you know this stuff better than I do.
Yeah. And it's one of them, when I did The Shield with Chickless years ago. And, Walton Goggins is in White Lotus.
Right.
And the Royal, what is the name of the Crazy Christians show that he's in?
Yeah. He's been in a ton of stuff. He's one of my favorite actors. Yeah. He's awesome. He
is the flavor of the year.
Yes.
And he's from Lithia Springs originally, which is a suburb of Atlanta. But my wife and I were watching him, Ellen, we're watching him on a section of White Lotus. She's watched more of it than I have. And I was like, you know what? I just realized I was on the fucking set with him because he had this, he wasn't like, I wouldn't really call him like a co-star, but he was one of the cops on The Shield.
Really?
That was like the tall, gawky guy that was like he was like a deputy or something. But that was one of his first big, quote unquote, big roles was. So,
well, I don't know if you've heard of the show.
You never know.
I don't know if you've heard of the show Justified. Justified is great.
Yeah.
With what's his name? Oliphant, Timothy Oliphant. But he played a pretty main character on that show. That was really the first time I was introduced to him. And then I was watching Sons of Anarchy, and he played a trans person.
Right.
And it was like so amazing because, it was like totally different character from the last one. And now you see him on White Lotus, and he's this real asshole kind of guy. But all these characters kind of develop in this show, and he's. But you're
Yeah.
right. I saw him on a commercial recently. I mean, he's really turning into a full fledged
Yeah.
movie star now. So that's cool.
Yeah.
It's great hearing about other people's careers, but I'd love to hear more about David's career.
Well, it's so funny that I think when I got started in, I've always been a self-deprecating kind of insecure type of person, which is really weird because I was on radio and I was either had my own morning show or I was like a sidekick on other people's morning show, which is like you really wear your life on your sleeve. But
Yeah.
I wasn't like that in my real life, and so when I moved to LA, I was kind of like, yeah, I've done a few things and all. And all of a sudden, I would be at a restaurant and people would be staring and mumbling to each other. And it literally was years. I was like, they're recognizing me from the bits I was fortunate enough to book over the years. And
Yeah.
I never really considered myself that type of actor. But as the years have gone by, like what you're saying, like what Tom said, turning people onto my reel. And I was like, yeah, I guess I am now that I'm in my 70s, that I can kind of look back at some success and say, you know what, compared to other people who bailed out of acting, who were the same age or a little bit younger than me, that, went on with their lives. I'm probably one of the handful of people that still have my hand in it, So I
Yeah.
guess I got that going for me.
No, that's great. And having that history and play into these different characters, you run into people all the time, especially out in LA, where you recognize them, you try to remember what show it is, and sometimes it's because it's from multiple shows. You put this image in your head and you can't quite figure it out. But yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, I would say the one thing that I've learned in Atlanta, I had a casting director friend who we were both from Miami, and when I
And
moved to
that's where you are
LA,
now, right? Atlanta?
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
and she around the same time in the '90s that I moved to LA and eventually met Tom later that year. She was a casting director that moved to Atlanta and continued her career. And when I moved here about 5 or 6 years ago, she said, Dave, if you would have shown up here 8 or 9 years ago, it would have been like Miami, where you went to an audition and it was like you and three other guys that looked like you.
Yeah.
And I would, even though I had hardly any experience and I'd only been to a couple of acting workshops, I really didn't know what the fuck I was doing. But I was pretty fortunate to book things down there. And so I was thinking, when I moved here with Ellen to Atlanta,
What's her name?
Fake Ellen. Fake Ellen.
yeah, you'll see eventually whether she's real or not. But anyway, my point is, I was thinking, okay, if I'm going to move, I never thought I'd move east of the Mississippi again. And
Yeah.
a scant few months later, it just got so untenable. I mean, I was living the dream. It was
Yeah.
like I was a part-time jock on one of the top radio stations in the country, but it was after money, so I was doing okay.
One thing that David did, which was pretty cool, was the movie Till, which was up for some Academy Awards and stuff. The one that Oprah produced, the whole story. David can tell you, but
Oh,
David
right.
he played the Southern bailiff. All rise.
Yeah, that's it's really funny. I look back at it like the specialist. I think I talked once, maybe twice in that entire movie. And see, I don't think you can, somebody like me that was just getting started in acting, I don't think you can book stuff like that anymore because people that are much more famous than me and have a much longer resume, they go for stuff like that now, where you would have actors like, oh, I'm not going to audition for that little part. But now, if it's kind of especially with the way television has blossomed the past 15, 20 years, it's like those parts that would have gone to somebody like me. People like to star fuck, so they're gonna choose somebody and voiceover work is like that too. They're if they can hang out with Ed Harris for several days, they're going to hire him for one of those quote unquote small parts.
Which is really funny because we were trying to get Ed Harris today. You'll
He follows me. He follows me everywhere in my goddamn career.
Yeah, we're gonna bring Shecky Green on as well.
Actually, that's really funny because I just remembered that I was fortunate enough to be the voice of UPS. And I was like, really? I booked this? And I made a chunk of money at it. But I found out later that Ed Harris was negotiating with them because he was the voice of UPS for quite a while. And then he
Wow.
pulled it because he wasn't happy with the way the money and the negotiations were going.
So you beat him out?
Well, I didn't beat him out. It was like he was like, I'm not doing this until we
beat him out.
negotiate this contract.
You beat him out. He knew he was
for a
going
few
up
months,
against you, and he cried mercy.
Fucking Ed Harris.
Fucking
Ed
mercy.
Harris.
Anyway, but yeah, so it's like Atlanta is kind of like a suburb of New York now as far as like the theater. I really miss theater. I've auditioned for a few things, and I produced one of my own plays that I wrote and starred in it.
Nice.
But other than that, it's very cliquish, and it's like trying to audition for off Broadway or something around here.
Well, with TV and film too, but we would do a lot of stuff in Atlanta. That was kind of the early 2000s, I think. And, they had a lot of big stages there and big infrastructure with labor pool and all the things that you needed. And I think that was kind of pre-New Mexico boom.
Right.
And then, different tax incentives that go through various states and building up those regional infrastructure to attract people. I think maybe Atlanta, it was a little, I don't know, maybe they lost a little bit of their competitive edge.
I'm surprised whenever I watch Turner Classic Movies or Criterion, we will run into, Ellen and me, will run into a film and we're like, God damn, this was like shot in Atlanta like in 69 or 72. And everything from Deliverance to Fried Green Tomatoes. So I think even before CNN, it was kind of known as a good location place that, Atlanta, it's really funny how it stands in for like upstate New York or Canada or like Illinois. Just that, you go north of Atlanta and it's hilly and mountainous, and it'll stand in for like, the Ozarks or Colorado sometimes.
Right.
So it's a good, compared to Florida, which is if you're going to shoot in Florida, it's probably going to be like a TV show about the Everglades or Flipper or on a boat but Atlanta can stand in for quite a few places.
Yeah. And the same thing with Colorado. And we talked about this on a previous episode that, Colorado, you can shoot in the city, you can go out east and shoot in the plains, you can go up to the mountains and shoot in the mountains, pretty much everything but the ocean you could shoot here. But as Deren and I discussed on a previous episode, it's that infrastructure. It's that, having the catering companies, having the grip, the electric people, the lighting people, where you can
and prop houses
and prop houses,
costumes. Right.
Deren once, this is kind of funny. Deren bought a prop house once in Los Angeles, and one of my part-time jobs was like going out there with the key and letting people in, but this place was a mess. It was the most disorganized warehouse full of shit.
Right.
And am I supposed to write this stuff down? Like everything?
It was like a little side hustle I had. You actually reminded me of something too. If I can tell this quick story here, when I left Los Angeles, you reminded me of it with fake Ellen, because I used to have, pretty good sized crews around, and, and I had people, fielding a lot of things. But then after I left, it was just me, and kind of still is. But at that time, I didn't have anybody that was like dealing with clients. And so if I missed something in a meeting, I would have to figure out a way of trying to get that information for the production without looking like a total idiot, like I wasn't listening. So I made up a fake assistant gave him a fake email. His name was Paul Millenick, and
That's a good one.
yeah,
I've worked
Paul's
with
my
him a
middle
few
name.
times.
Millenick was like an amalgam of a couple of different people that I knew, and kind of put that
And
name
your middle
together.
name.
Middle name for Paul, right? And then, but I would reach out to these people and said, "Hey, just recapping some information that Deren gave me. I'm missing this,"
Brilliant.
and would ask these questions on behalf of myself, so I wouldn't look like an idiot.
That
But
is really
Paul,
brilliant.
the intern, assistant, whatever he was, yeah, he could ask anything, and just looked like he was covering his bases and trying to fill in the blanks.
And it would make him look like he's the idiot, not you. Just like, Deren told me all this stuff, but I don't think I took good notes. What did you say about this?
Exactly right. I think I got this
Well,
right.
if it's good enough for Donald Trump, he used to do that in his real estate business. He'd pretend he was he'd pretend he was his own agent, and he
Oh
would
yeah,
call
that's
up the
right.
New York
Yeah,
Post or the New York Times and
yeah,
go like, "This Donald Trump guy, he just got a deal the other day. I think you should write about it."
yeah,
And it's
right.
like you listen to those tapes now, and it's like it's fucking
Oh, I know.
DJT.
I've heard that. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's
That's
so
great.
funny. That's so
Yeah.
funny.
So, what's a fake Ellen sound like? I wonder.
Ellen's
I'm just
great.
kidding.
She's from Fake Ellen is great. She's a great actor
Yes, she is.
herself, and for being from Brooklyn, she's got a great Southern accent. It just really pisses me off because she's kind of like one of my many other friends who like moved on with their lives. And I told her, I was like, you know what? If you were half as because I don't consider myself a very aggressive go-getter, but I says if you just did half of what I've done since we moved here, as far as like looking for an agent, getting new headshots and everything, she'd probably be booking shit much more than I would, because she's a very talented person.
Your camera
And
just.
Yeah.
yeah, but she's I don't know. It's
I will say
she's
this though. I've known Ellen. I met Ellen before she was even dating David, because we have. It's a long story, but anyway. But
Don't tell
Ellen
me
came
you
out.
hooked up with Ellen.
Ellen, no. Yeah, I wouldn't mind. No. Ellen came out to visit her friend
Easy.
Lisa, and as it was actually, they came over and we had like dinner and stuff, and then all of a sudden it's like David's like, "Well, I'm bringing this wonderful woman, back to Los Angeles with me," and I'm like, "Oh my God, we've met you. You came over for dinner with Lisa." But Ellen is a
yeah,
wonderful, wonderful person. I mean, David is so
yeah.
lucky to have
Nice.
someone so supportive and unconditional love, and she's so clever and quirky and beautiful. And but you're absolutely right. Everything I've seen her do acting wise, she's really really good. And with accents and stuff, like you said, her southern
I
accent.
know.
It's hard to believe that she's from Brooklyn doing that. It's so realistic.
Yeah.
Question for you: with everyone loves like a good behind the scenes story, or favorite moments. Do you have like a favorite moment, or anything that just like a
Yeah.
little mishap or something that happened? I know I could
The one
throw
that
some things.
um, there's several, but the one that really sticks out because it had a happy ending. Some of the other ones don't.
Insert joke here.
When I was on The Specialist, I was really like a DJ trying to learn how to act. And I had been in several community plays in Miami and in Coral Gables. And, I held my own. But when I was on that set, it was like James Woods and Sharon Stone and Rod Steiger and of course Stallone that I had a couple of scenes with. And so I was like I was saying, I was just kind of an insecure guy, and I was surrounded. Everybody was from California, so and it was one of the things that inspired me to move to LA after I booked The Specialist. I was like, I really want to learn how to do this and how the business works. But I just remember the one of my last things they were going to shoot with me was a scene where Stallone sneaks up behind me, and it's like I'm looking for him with a gun, and he sneaks up and he grabs me by the collar and slams me into a pillar at the Fontainebleau Hotel on Miami Beach. And so the head stunt guy, Alan God, I'm blanking out on his name, but he's in the movies that he did was the stunt
Coordinator.
director for
Yeah.
the stunt coordinator. He always got a speaking part.
Yeah.
Because
Many of
the
them do,
directors
because they have to play the role and do the actions.
yeah.
Yeah. Right.
So he calls me up the night before and he says, "Hey, just wanted to touch bases with you. I know, you're not really a stunt person and everything, but just practice tonight. Just like, like he's going to slam you, and just practice in your living room." Of
Right.
like, so I did what I could, but the next day I was so nervous, and it was like, it wasn't just a stunt scene. It was like the Fontainebleau, there's been an explosion. The Fontainebleau is on fire. And it's like I'm looking for him. And there's literally hundreds of extras running back and forth, like,
Yeah.
oh, where's my baby? And so every time we did a take, it was like I was like holding the gun, looking for him. Stallone comes up behind me, and I'm like so clumsy. And you can tell that I'm not really falling. I'm not being really slammed. And Alan is just like putting his head in his
This
hands,
fucking guy.
which
Right.
made me even more fucking nervous.
Right.
But the thing is, every time we had to do a take, all these hundreds of extras had to, first position and start over. So the pressure was, I was like sweating bullets, and I was like, they're going to take me out of this movie. They're going to, and so finally, I think it was like the third or fourth time. I don't know how we did it, but he came up. And I just like forgot everything, and just like whatever happens, happens. He slams me, and the director says, "That's a take." And so I'm sitting in the golf cart, like eating an apple, just totally depressed. And Alan goes by, and he was like shaking his head, and he goes, "Caprita," like in not a good way. And so after, I moved on with my life, and the movie was coming out like 6 or 8 months later. And I was like, I'm really surprised if they're going to have me in any of this movie, but at least I got paid.
Yeah.
And so around that time, Schwarzenegger's True Lies came out, which was also shot in Miami. And a friend of mine went to the movies, and he says, "Yeah, we went to see True Lies." He says, "And guess what?" He says, they showed the trailer to The Specialist coming out in December before Christmas. And I was like, "Oh, really? So what was it like?" He was like, "You're in that fucker." He's like, "Everybody else is a movie." Yeah. Everybody else in the trailer is a movie star, like James Woods, Sharon Stone, Stallone, Rod Steiger, and me. And not only am I in it, it's that fucking stunt. And so when I went to the movies to see True Lies or something, and sure enough, and I was like, and to this day, it's on my reel, but it looks fucking, I mean, when he slams me against that pillar, it's like I immediately collapsed, like I just got cold cocked, man.
Nice.
And I don't know how I did it, but it's they put it in the fucking trailer, man.
Wow.
That is so great.
Awesome. You know what's funny is that on David's reel, I don't know if it's the same as it was now, but like the first 4 things were him getting beaten up. It looks like Stallone beats him up. And then he was in another, Michael Chiklis punches him in the face. And there's something else. It's like 4 things in a row. I'm like, man, David just gets beat up in all these.
It's like no one recognizes me until I get punched.
Oh, now I recognize the blood.
I know that guy.
Yeah, the Shield was weird.
That's great.
But the chick, they cut it short. I mean, it looks great, I think, when he grabs me, because I recognize somebody that is going to rat on me. And I go after the guy, and Chiklis grabs me and slams me, and I have blood. But then after that, he was like, "Well, when's the hit
I know all
happen?"
the lines, David. If you want me to go through them.
Okay, you guys here. You play Stallone?
Oh, I don't say much.
128th Escondita. What is that? Cigarettes or something? So your smokers can, so your whatever can cough in peace. Next.
Oh yeah, he's looking up stuff on the computer.
Check it this
and
one.
I'm,
It
like,
may be nothing.
And
then he gives the next address, and all of a sudden he goes, "What was the guy's name?" He goes. Then David goes, "Hagop," and then he turns around and goes, "Thratch," and he's like, "You're still alive," and all of a sudden, boom!
I'd go after him. But the thing is, it's like you never know. But it's like after he like holds me like, and I'm laughing in his face, and I have blood, and I'm like, "Fuck you!" And he like actually lifted me up and slammed me against the wall, and this chalkboard like falls out. It was like fucking great. But
Oh,
then
that's
when they
good.
showed it, they cut that. I mean, that was the money shot. After
Yeah.
he beats me up, he slams me against the wall, and they cut that part out. But
Mm,
you never
yeah.
know what they're going to do. You just got to do the work and
Right.
move on.
Exactly.
It's
It's
so
Especially if
true.
you're working regular, you know.
it's kind of
Yeah.
like this show. I mean, you may your whole segment may be on the editing room floor, David. It's like
I hope so
Right.
because
Oh
this
man, I
is
forgot to hit record on this too. So
God. This is the most I've talked about myself since a Coke party in Miami at 83. Um, what is that famous line? It's like, but enough about me. What do you think about me?
Joan Rivers would say that all the
oh,
time.
I remember as a kid hearing, speaking of great quotes, hearing Jimmy Cagney saying, he was being interviewed on something. I don't remember what it was. When you were trying to deliver a great line, they were asking him, like, what's the trick? What's the trick to acting? He's like, it's the same thing in life. He's like, find your mark, look him in the eye, and tell him the truth.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I thought that was just so great. And what that truth is, what's written on the page. It's whatever you believe your truth to be as an actor.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Exactly.
like they said at Sandy Meisner always said, you know, like, and I hear actors when I see them on Colbert or Jimmy Kimmel or something, and they will bring up, yeah, you know, my imaginary circumstances, you know, and you never reveal what you were thinking, but
Yeah.
I've heard that term from people who didn't even study Meisner, was like, you know, coming up with imaginary circumstances and really believing it. But I
Yeah.
think for me, the one thing that was great about the Meisner technique was, and other techniques concentrate on this too, is listening. And
Yeah.
I remember, Tom, you might remember too, that one of the most fascinating things about the classes that we took was seeing the beginners, the kids that were 19, 20 years old, that had never taken an acting class before, and they would just do the repetition exercise, which I like to call the listen and respond exercise. But you know, it got a bad rap because they call it repetition, and people think that you're just repeating what the other person said. But it really taught you how to fucking look somebody in the eye, like you were saying, and
Yeah.
and just really listening. And we would watch these beginners
Yeah.
that got good at the listen respond exercise, and if you were to videotape them and turn the sound down, sometimes if they went on for like 2, 3, 5 minutes, it was like watching a scene from a movie. That you would see the reaction, you would see them get pissed off, you would see them laugh out loud because the other person made whatever they saw in the other person's eyes made them like chuckle, and
Yeah.
it's and
Because
it was
it's
like it
not
was just
acting, it's
amazing.
reacting. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the listening thing, even for the beginners, is like, even if you don't know what in the fuck you're doing, if you just sit there and don't get nervous and don't go to your head, but just really listen to the other person, it forgives a multitude of inexperienced sins, you know.
And it's so
Yeah.
funny because I will, to this day, when I watch television shows or whatever, I'll just be like, this guy's not even listening. This guy just has his preconceived lines in his head, and he's just going off the cue of the last word to say his next line. I'm like, did you even hear what he just told you? That didn't affect you at all. You know, it's kind of, I mean, and you can tell the really good actors from the bad ones, you know, especially like soap opera things, you know, in certain things where, you know, you watch and you're like going, you can just tell a bad acting from a, and even some really good actors. I mean, I remember David and I going to see, and it was, I think it was on Santa Monica Boulevard. It was that theater that would show things that came out, you know, that had already left the big cinemas, and they would show them like a little cheaper. And David
Right.
No,
and I
the
went
new art, the new
Oh yeah,
art.
yeah.
the
Newark.
new art. And you
Yeah.
and I had gone to see this movie with Brad Pitt, and I want to say it was someone like Morgan Freeman, but it was Seven. Was it Seven that we went to see that movie Seven?
Oh, you're talking about the one that Tarantino owns now.
Yes,
That's around the corner from the deli, Cantor's,
yes.
of Fairfax. Yeah, Yeah, it was, and I remember. I mean, it was really cool, but
Is that
the
the
sound system
Cinerama
was great.
Dome or
No, this
no,
was
not that
called
one?
the Beverly something, and
Okay.
but it showed nothing but older films that had back then. It was like
Yeah.
films that had been out for like 6, 8, 9 months. But now that Tarantino took it over, he shows really old films.
Yeah.
But it was like blasting. But it was Seven
It
that we
was
went to
seven,
see.
and the thing that was
Yeah.
so funny about it is that I walked out of there. I said, Brad Pitt's not that great of an actor. You know, I said there were a lot of scenes where I just did not feel he was listening. Of course, this was the height of Meisner. I mean, David and I were in this class, and we had been in it for a while. So I think we were more perceptive of watching other people's behavior,
Right.
especially actors. Because you want to learn from them, but also see if they're doing the technique correctly. But I remember walking out of there and saying, I didn't think Brad was listening.
That I just remember that technique also. I think I had mentioned it to Marty. I said, you know what? Um, after all the crazy shit I've done in my life, partying and psychological stuff, I says this technique has made me feel like David Caprita. And I think part of it was being on the radio all the time. I was Dave Caprita. I was always putting on a show. Like even if I ran into somebody like at a restaurant, I always felt like I was performing. And like studying that technique for a couple of years, I said, I feel like David Caprita for the first time since I was 11 or 12 years old. It was just
Wow.
like all of a sudden I felt like me for the first time in decades. And I think a combination. And it's pretty amazing too, because it really ties in with the Buddhism that I've studied over the years. That he was this little Jewish guy from New York City that like was like the Dalai Lama as far as like all the things that he was like. Every little moment has a meaning of its own. And like if an actor like Tom was talking about, somebody that's not really listening. If somebody gives you nothing, that's fucking something. Because there's other actors who would be like, he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing, and like Marty would say, well, how does that make you feel?
Yeah.
I mean,
Go with it.
that should
Yeah.
fucking piss you off. So anyway, it was for me, especially not knowing much about acting until I moved to LA.
Yeah.
It
and
was really enlightening as a person as well as an actor.
Well,
and
I've
it was
seen a lot of actors go off script too, just to heighten that scene and making sure that they have the right sort of engagement with whoever they're
Yeah.
playing up against.
I
So
used to drive people when I
I
was
love seeing that. Yeah.
after I graduated from the Meisner School, I would go back to Miami and be like in these big theater productions, and
Yeah.
I used to drive people crazy during rehearsal because I would be so full that I would be saying my lines, and I would toss in like
Yeah.
dealing with the other person. I'd be saying my lines. They'd be like, "What the fuck is the matter with you? You're not even listening to," and they would look at Joe, the director, and go like, "That's not it." It's like, no, it's not, and I would
Right.
just give people shit,
Right.
and
You're
people would
talking to
get
me.
pissed
This
off
is
at me.
between us
Yeah.
right now. Exactly.
And it would make people nervous. Like, I hope he's not going to do this when we perform it. But of course,
Yeah.
and
you have all that fun in rehearsal, and then you
Yeah.
throw all that shit away, and you do your job when it's time to perform.
And
Yeah.
speaking of theater, I wanted to talk about this. You're talking about your friend Joe Adler. David, you won a couple awards for best actor. Like, we're talking
Well, I
like
was nominated,
oh, you were not. Oh, you
but
didn't win. Okay,
yeah,
well, you could have
the
lied.
for Killer Joe. Yeah,
Yeah, the movie
which
Killer Joe, which later on was Matthew McConaughey
yeah.
played it in the movie. But this was what was the first production was in New York, and the second production was in Miami. It was the first
First,
ever.
Tracy Letts wrote it, and he was, I think, the original Killer Joe in Chicago. But then it went to off Broadway, and Scott Glenn was Killer Joe off Broadway, but ours was the first production after those two, if I'm not mistaken, and it was a good production. We had a lot of people that told us that they
And you
seen
had to go on
the other
stage
ones.
naked. I remember you telling me that. You're like, I
Yeah.
had to go out there stark naked in this scene because I had
What?
just supposedly had
Oh boy.
sex with this woman, whatever. And he literally has to go out there, with like no clothes on. And I'm like, that must have been difficult because they always say,
Oh, it was very, like, I tell people that, I mean, people metaphorically say, I like going out on stage and just being naked, and they mean like psychologically, like I
Yeah, not
I just like
literally.
I just want to bear everything to the audience, and when you're fucking naked, it's like, I mean, I highly recommend it for every actor if you just want to like throw all cares and self consciousness aside and get out there. But it was done very tastefully. But I just remember Joe, when we were rehearsing it, he was like, "Now, when you come out with a Glock because somebody's breaking into your house, you just got through. You were in the middle of screwing her. So when you come out, I want you to be kind of hard." And I was like, Joe,
Right.
not only am I going to be kind of nervy before I come out, and what am I supposed to do?
You
And
needed
the
a
girl,
fluffer.
yeah, well, the girl that I did the scene with, she's like sitting next to me, and I was like, Joe's like saying he wants me to be hard when I walk out, and she says, well, he's going to have to pay me a hell of a lot more if he wants me to do something about that. He's going to have to double my salary. She was
Oh,
hilarious,
that's
Oh my
funny.
but
God.
it was great. But Joe, I've seen productions in LA too where somebody is like naked, and it's like so fucking self indulgent, where the
Yeah.
lights really bright, and the way Joe did it, this guy's breaking into my trailer, and I come out, and the lights were kind of dark and bluish, and I come out, and the audience is like, oh, because they can see I'm naked, but it's like I'm out there, and I put the gun to his head, and then he's like, it's me, it's me, it's me, and I was like, God damn it, and I cocked the pardon the pun, Glock, and I walk off stage. I forget what I say, but I walk off stage. But it was done very tastefully, and the whole thing, the nakedness was probably like 20 seconds or less, and Joe had he had a taste for like not being sensationalistic
Yeah.
with his directing or his productions, and
I'm sure it was the
yeah,
longest 20 seconds of your life being on stage.
Pardon the
I loved
pun.
it. I
Right.
Pardon the
loved it.
pun. Long
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Put him in the cell
Yeah.
with the
Oh,
long hose on him. Put him in the
Yeah.
cell.
Killer Joe is. I'd always say that it's basically a Greek tragedy. It's
yeah.
like there's not a lot of sub story. There's not a lot of psychological mishmash between. It's like basically these people want to kill somebody, and they invite the devil into their house, and that's the fucking story. That is the whole story. It's like something that the Greeks would have written 2,000 years ago.
Sure.
Tracy Letts is one of my
Yeah.
favorite playwrights.
That's so cool. So what's
Love
going
that.
on lately? I know you're working on writing a few projects. I know you told me that you.
That's tough. I love writing. If I say so myself, I have a lot of great scripts, but they're kind of like, to be honest with you, I still write and try to write every day, but I've really taken a break from it the past 6 7 months because uh, the bookings are very tough to get here, at least for me, and just what's happening now economically and everything. So I was like half joking about the truck thing, but I'm probably going to do that. But for the first time in 6 years, to answer your question, I'm getting back into radio for the first time. It's not much money, but I got my foot in the door, and
Really?
I've done that in the past where it was like pay me what you want. I just want to get back into radio. And then within 6 or 8 months, I always ended up doing or being part of a morning show or
Is
something.
there an opportunity
So,
for a plug here with a time station?
well, it's, right now I'm helping them with the news during the day just to learn the software, which
Gotcha.
is really cool.
Right.
And I think they're going to give me a couple of weekend shifts to voice track, but it's a it's a combination country and classic rock. Um, Fox is the classic rock station in Atlanta, and I think I'll be doing some voice tracking on that. But the main gig is like in downtown Fayetteville, which is a beautiful little town, and it's called the Bear,
The Bear.
and And it was really, I had just come from taking my truck driving test at the Georgia License Bureau, and I was headed home. And I had, when I first moved here, I walked in there and I said, "Can I fill out an application?" And nothing ever came of it. And this time, just a little voice was like, "Instead of turning left to go home, park right here and go into that goddamn radio station." And I did. And I met the program director, and he says, "Hang on a second, I want you to meet somebody." And the head of programming for all the 100 stations that they own was there, and the owner. And they are all in their 60s. So the self consciousness about, most people in radio are like in their 20s. Everybody that works there, except a couple of people, are over 50. And so I felt
Really?
really at home. And I met the owner. He loved me. I gave him an air check. They loved it. And the next thing I know is like, "We don't have much for you now, but we want to utilize your voice and work." And so it was just this voice that said, "Don't go home." And I was feeling, I was full of piss and vinegar from my driver license test. And so the energy was right. And I just went in there and I just said, "Hey, I just thought I'd drop by and say hi and see what was up." And the next thing I know, I was there for like 30, 45 minutes bullshitting with the owner and the head of programming and everything. And so we'll see what happens. But
I think that's a good lesson about, being assertive or just getting
yeah,
that face time, because that's so much more
yeah,
powerful than just
in an
sending
email
a
or something.
resume or, just sending a random email. Uh, Being in there in person, making that connection, having a chance to feel your personality, feel your energy goes a long,
yeah.
long way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. It's you know what they say, feel the fear and do it anyway. And like when that little voice is like, "Oh God, I haven't been on the radio," or like, "I haven't acted, and now I'm going to go audition for the part of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf," and play Joe. And it's like, do it anyway. Make an ass
Why
out of
not?
yourself.
Yeah,
You
right.
know.
I make an ass out
You
of
never know.
myself multiple times a day.
Yeah.
Yes,
We do
I
it.
have
We
my
do it
I'm
once a
making an ass out of
started.
myself being with you guys on this goddamn
exactly.
podcast.
We do it
Don't
once a
worry,
week.
no one is watching or listening to this anyways. Right. We don't have
Well,
an audience. So, it's just the three of us. That's it.
Man, this
it's
has been really fun
there's
though. I mean, it's just
there's
so
something very zen about that.
there's
Right.
this is something really cool, and I've always kind of said this. I said the only reason that I would ever want to get married, it was just like would just be to have David, Deren, my buddy John, and my buddy Lance all like in the same room. And my friends are like, "Well, then why spend all this time and grief getting married just to have like a guy's weekend?" And I'm like, "Well, no one's going to show up for that. I mean, maybe, Dave would say, "Oh, I can't. Ellen's going to be out of town. I got to take care of the dog. Darren's going to be like, I got to shoot that week or
Yeah.
whatever." But it's like the wedding is like, Fry's getting married. Get the fuck
I
out.
know. And
Of
then we would
course I'm
go
going
up
to go.
again 6 months later for the divorce party.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've been there, done that 4 or 5 times.
4 or 5 times.
4 or 5. Wow. That
He's up,
is
you're on
That'll
number
be
4, I think, right?
that'll
that
be a
next
deep
time
dive.
we'll stay away from talking about the professional stuff, and we'll talk about relationships next
Yeah.
time.
That sounds great. Starting with fake Ellen, ending with
She's gonna love this.
I know.
Oh, by the way, during this shoot, they I don't know if you heard any hammering, but they actually put in the new sign for the new real estate company. When I was like out there watching, like
That's great. Well, I can't wait to find out what happens with that. I'm sure
me
you
too.
can either. Yeah,
I'm ready to get out of this burg.
I know for sure. Well,
Yeah.
David, thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank
Really, really
you.
appreciate it, man. You're awesome. I've heard about you so many times through Tom.
I
think
bet.
we talked once or twice, like trying to connect, but we never have met in person. I can't wait to do that eventually. But it was great being able to
Yeah.
connect with you here and spending
Well,
some
we
time
all
with you.
have. I'm sure for work reasons or just to get the hell out of Dodge. We, as Tom knows, we have this big house. The upstairs is like almost like an apartment of its own. People love staying here. It's got huge backyard. Everybody loves our dog, and so if you want to get away from work in town for a few days, the door is open, literally.
I
Well,
love that.
I'm excited about the fact that instead of being a plane ride and a connection away from you, we'll be like an 8-hour car ride. So when I'm in Bloomington and you're in Atlanta, it's like, what are you doing for lunch? We'll leave at 8 a.m. and we'll meet in Tennessee.
Yeah, Nashville. Yeah.
There you go.
Totally.
Nice.
Okay, guys. I
Love
guess
that.
that's it, huh?
Yeah.
Oh,
David.
we have a minute and 15 seconds, but I'm going to bail so you guys can roll the credits.
Yeah. Thanks again, David. Really, really appreciate it. You are absolutely amazing. And I
Thank you.
can't
And
wait
you guys
to
are too.
hear about the radio show and what's happening next. Thanks again.
All right.
All right.
All
Take
right.
care.
Talk to you guys later.
That was cool.
So cool. Thanks for getting him on. That's great.
Absolutely.
I love that.
You know, it's one thing. It's funny that it's like my parents, love David, and it's
Yeah.
like, it's in my parents love you. It's funny that I seem to choose friends and women that I've dated that are just good people, interesting, funny. There's no I don't have any boring friends. You know what I'm saying? It's like
That's great. Yeah.
and I love that. But we just lost your video feed.
I know. Hold on a second. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, should I just sign off for us and we can both say later, dude?
Can you still hear me okay?
Oh, absolutely, dude. You're fine.
All right.
All right, are you ready?
Well, with that,
Later, dude.
later, dude.
Tom and D.
Two middle-aged idiots.